Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're learning Mishnah Yisukah, Parak Aleph, Chapter 1, Mishnah Zayin, Mishnah 7. Now, we need to have a little introduction before we start this Mishnah. Okay, now, we've already mentioned this halacha before, that you can't use your house as a sukkah. Even if the roof would be made from the same materials that could be kosher for schach, if it's made for a house, for a permanent living, then it's not a sukkah and you can't use it. Now, our Mishnah is going to talk about a house whose roof is made of beams that are between 3 and 4 tefachim wide. I mean, you got to, in order to understand this Mishnah, you have to have these details in mind. That we're talking about a house that is made from the roof is made from beams that are 3 to 4 tefachim wide. We learned in yesterday's Mishnah, we have a machlokas, we have an argument between the Tanoim and the Mishnah as to whether that size from 3 and 4 can be used for schach or not. I mean, forget about if it was part of a roof. Let's say you want to use these kinds of beams for schach. So we have the mayor says that once it has to be less than 3 tefachim. Once it's 3 tefachim wide, then it resembles a roof, and we're afraid that you may think if I could sit under this for my sukkah, I can sit under a regular roof of my house for a sukkah. According to Yehuda, that problem only begins once it's 4 tefachim wide. Okay. Now, what's important to know is that even according to Yehuda, if let's say you actually took your ceiling, your roof, and you said, you know what, I'm going to use this roof. I'm going to use this roof for my schach. I'm turning my house into a sukkah, and I'm going to make my roof into schach. So you got two problems. One problem is that since it started off as the roof of your house and invalid, you can't just decide that it's going to now turn into schach. Because as we said, your schach has to be put there in a status of being kosher schach. You can't just be put in a status of non-kosher schach and then you take away the invalidation. That's not enough. You got to go ahead and relay it, move it around, pick it up, put it down. Okay, that's one issue. Another issue is the fact that even if somehow or another you're going to go ahead and take care of that Torah problem of the fact that it was not kosher schach because it was part of the house and wasn't put there for the purposes of shade. That's what we said yesterday, right? Your roof of your house is made to do much more than just shade. It's to protect you from the rain, protect you from the sun, from the cold. It's there for a lot of other things for living on a more permanent basis. The schach of the sukkah, we say, is mainly for shade, or call it for less of a protective purpose. That's what schach is. Now, if you went ahead and you laid it down as a roof, you can't just turn it to schach. But if, let's say, I were to go ahead, all right, so I put it down there as part of my roof. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to decide I'm going to pick it up again and put it back down and say, this is my schach. Okay, and it's made out of the kosher material for schach. You're still going to have a problem. And the problem is that even if, let's say, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who said that using planks of 4 tefachim are a problem, there we're afraid you're going to mix it up with a house. And less than 4, you're not going to confuse it. In this case, even less than 4, you're going to confuse. You know why? Because it was part of your roof. It was actually part of your roof. It was part of a roof. Now to go ahead and say, well, it's even by going ahead and lifting it up and putting that down, right? I still have a problem that it's the same problem as if it was 4 tefachim wide. It's still going to resemble a roof because in this case, it may not be as wide as 4, but it was part of a roof. So the concern of confusing it with a regular roof is still going to be there between 3 and 4. Less than 3, that's a pole. That's not going to, maybe even if it was part of your house, then it wouldn't be a problem. I know they say I just thought about that right now. The case of between 3 and 4, which has to do with the machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Meir. If it was less than 3, would you have the same problem? I don't know. But right now we're dealing between 3 and 4. And although typically if it's less than 4, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not going to be a problem, here it could potentially still be a problem. Because although it's not the width that's typically a problem of confusing it with a regular roof, in this case, since it was part of a roof before, even less than 4 could have that problem. Okay, with that in mind, let's begin reading the Mishnah. Tikra, Shedo Le'amaziva. You have a roof, and this roof does not have plaster on it. Now, they explain down here in the notes, usually the beams of a roof are covered with a layer of plaster. Our Mishnah, though, speaks of a roof that had not yet been plastered. For if it did contain plaster, none of the procedures mentioned below could convert it into a valid schach. Meaning, we're going to talk. Our Mishnah is going to talk about how could you convert your roof into kosher schach. But if this roof has plaster on it, there's nothing you can do because you always have a layer of plaster there, and the plaster is not kosher schach. So therefore, our Mishnah must be talking about this person who made a roof for his house and didn't plaster it yet. And now he decides, I want to turn it into schach. It's sukkos. I want to turn it into schach. So you can't just poof, say it's schach. You got to do something more. So what do? So we're going to have an argument again between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, Beis Shammai Oimrim. He said that we had here an argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Not an argument that was mentioned before, but an argument, according to Rabbi Yehuda, an argument that revolved around this case. Rabbi Yehuda says, Beis Shammai Oimrim, Beis Shammai say, Mefakvek v'neitel aches mebentayim. The word mefakvek means you take it apart, which means that what you're doing here is you are going to, they translate mefakvek as shifts. You shift the boards around. Now, you can only shift the boards around if you take out the nails, right? If you undo it, you have to undo the board. He takes out the nails and moves the board slightly. Okay? That's what mefakvek means. But it says, mefakvek v'neitel aches mebentayim. And you take out one from between the others. So the way they explain it is like this. Essentially, if you want to you may say, well, it was part of my roof. I'll go ahead and I'll just take out the boards and I'll move it around like I would do maybe for other schach that was put down invalid. Okay. But Beis Shammai says you can't just do that. It's not going to work. It's almost like reading mefakvek. I mean, to a certain degree, you're going to have to undo it, right? But the way again the art scroll reads it as is mefakvek. If you moved it around, that's really not enough. The night aches b'intayim. What you really have to do is you've got to take out one from between the others. Meaning, if let's say your roof was made out of 6 boards, okay, you got to take out every other one and fill that space with schach. That's what you got to do. And if you do that, the boards that aren't moved don't have to be moved. You really don't have to do anything. You really don't have to do. It's enough to go ahead and move in between each one. Now, let's examine this. What's going on? So what's going on is what we just said before. We've got to deal with 2 problems here. We got to deal with the problem that it was once your roof, which was invalid according to Torah law to be schach. And for that problem, theoretically, all you need to do is pull it up, move it around, and that's done. Okay? It was pasol schach, and I relayed it. And this time I laid it for schach. It's made as kosher schach. It's made out of the right materials. According to Torah law, you're good to go. But you still have that rabbinic problem that we mentioned yesterday, that if you use boards that people can confuse with a roof, you can't use those boards. And in this case, even if it's less than 4, you have that problem because it was part of your roof. To solve that problem, it's not enough to move it around, says Beis Shammai. For that, you got to do something more drastic. You're going to have to pull out the ones in between and fill it with kosher schach. Once you do that, you've covered everything. You've covered the Torah problem. You've covered the rabbinic problem. You may ask why. You may ask, what about those boards that didn't move? Like, why are they okay? It's a good question. It's such a good question. They don't even discuss it. They just ask the question and say, look here for an answer. But the idea has to be that once you've kind of like really changed in such a degree that in between each one you put kosher schach, that will be enough to say that I, relayed my roof and that, people won't confuse it anymore. But according to Beis Shammai, you have to take out those boards in between and fill it with schach. That's really what you need to do. Now, Beis Hillel say, no, you got a choice. You could either just move it around, shift it around, or take it in between. Meaning, if you'd like to go ahead and not have to schlep out all the boards and just take out one in between the others and fill it with schach, go ahead, go for it. That's fine. But if you don't want to do that, it would be enough just to go ahead, pull out the nails, and shift it around. Because according to Beis Hillel, both problems can be solved with this shifting around. By shifting it around, you're laying it new, meaning it was your roof, it was invalid, I'm laying it new. And from the point of the rabbinic problem, people confuse it with the roof. If you've moved it around, that's enough. That's enough for people to see that things are different around, that things are different. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir says, no argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Everybody agreed. Just you got it. Everybody agrees. The only thing for you to do is take out one from between the others, and going and moving it around doesn't work. Now, what's this argument here? So this argument here revolves around the following. As I mentioned before, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if it's less than 4 tefachim wide, you shouldn't have the problem of the rabbinic problem of confusing it with a roof. But here we have the problem of confusing it with that roof because of the fact that it was part of the roof. Okay? Now, the thing is like this. Okay, so what did I do? I went ahead and I moved it around and I picked it up and I relayed it, right? And let's say according to Beis Hillel, right? Let's say you say mefakfik works. Let's say theoretically it could work. Okay, all right. But the thing is like this. Okay, so I took out the nails, I moved it around, I relayed it, right? And it shouldn't resemble my roof anymore, right? That really depends. It really depends how wide it is, right? If after the end of the day, if it's still going to be too wide, it's not going to help me because then I'm going to revert back to the rabbinic problem that if it's too wide, I'm not allowed to use it. That's what they said. If it's too wide, I'm not allowed to use it. Now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, since we're talking about that it's up, that's between 3 and 4, it's not 4 tefachim yet. So the width issue, the measurement issue of being too wide, I don't really have. The only problem is that I have the rabbinic problem of confusing it with a roof because it was part of my roof. For that, it's enough to pick it to take out the nails and move it around. That's enough, at least according to Beis Hillel. According to Reb Meir, it's not going to help you because according to Reb Meir, between 3 and 4 is where the rabbis decreed it's too wide. So even if I go ahead and I pick it up and I put it back down, I'm using a board that's too wide. That's too wide. That's the rabbis decreed. I can't use such a wide board. So even if I theoretically took care of the problem that since it was part of my roof, I can confuse it with a roof, and that you tell me I took care of it by moving it around. But at the end of the day, the rabbis decreed, according to Reb Meir, once it's 3 tefachim wide, you cannot use it because it's too wide. It resembles a roof too much, and the confusion is going to be there again. Therefore, Reb Meir said there's no solution with just moving it around. The only solution, according to everybody, is the fact that you pull out one board in between and you fill it with schach. That's all you can do. So what really comes out is that the argument from yesterday, which was the argument about when the Rabbanan made that decree about looking like a roof, that Rabbi Yehuda said between 3 and 4 is not a problem. Reb Meir says once it's 3, it is a problem, carries over to here. Carries over to this case, when you want to make your roof into kosher schach, what do you need to do? If, according to Rabbi Yehuda, since less than 4 tefachim wide doesn't have the rabbinic decree of being confused with a roof, if I take care of the problem that it was previously my roof, then I'm good to go. But according to Reb Meir, it's not going to be enough because I'm landing up with a measure that's too wide to be kosher schach. And therefore, all I can do is pull out the boards, fill the open area with schach, which is the best way to go ahead and convert your roof into schach. Then already there's no issues. Even according to Reb Meir, even though the other boards according to Reb Meir were 3, the fact that the ones in between are not even there, they're just kosher schach, that works also. Okay? So that is how that's what this mission is discussing about how to go in and convert your roof into kosher schach. Okay? If you decide to do that, ask a shaila. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Does the roof have to be flat all